You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey all, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 91. I'm Clark from 5 Card Guys, and with me, co-hosting as always, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. So by the time this episode airs, it'll be November, so we're recording in October, a couple weeks left in this month. So if we're in November, it means we're less than 2 months away until the Christmas season. So I always say, after Halloween, it's never too early to start getting people's names crossed off your Christmas shopping list. So in that spirit, and since we are a sports card podcast, I wanted to ask you guys, hypothetically, if you're going to buy one sports card as a gift that you think could go up in value in 2023, which card would that be?
Ooh, this is a good one, Clark.
Nice.
For me, I picked one card that I thought had some legs and potential, because everybody kind of is looking the other way, because obviously Fernando Tatis is someone that a lot of people kind of like are saying his career is over. I think his career is far from over. Yeah. And back in October, this is mid-October, his Topps Gold PSA 10 sold for $294. Okay, damn. His Topps Gold. Yeah. So for me, I've seen that card as high as, I want to say, $3,000 at one point. Right. And it broke a huge resistance when that whole thing happened, and it started tumbling to 800, then 500, then 400, then 294, and then it kind of went up a bit, and then now we could potentially see a little more drop. So I think that this is a perfect time to kind of pick one up, because I think and we just got news that now that Tatis's team, the San Diego Padres, they're playing more, obviously, playoff games. These count as Tatis's suspension. So they said he could come as early as, I believe, April 11th or something like that, where he misses 10 games or something. So he almost has a full season going into next year, right? He'll be ready right after spring training. So I think when that hype occurs after kind of like that November, December mark, I think there's going to be an initial hype of kind of like that Tatis train. So I think the gold is really super low. I even looked at the sapphire. It's down to like $600, the PSA 10. So that could be also a good option. But this Topps Gold in particular, when I seen it under 300, I think I'm a buyer there. Pop 300.
Is that the one?
I didn't even know.
Is that the one numbered to 2019?
Yeah, 2019 exactly. Jeez. And it's a Pop 300 in that PSA 10. So
Pop 300.
Jeez.
Yes. That's a good choice.
That is a great gift.
To myself.
You know what? Before John,
go ahead.
Before Johnny goes, do you think if the Padres go all the way, do you think that will impact Tatis's value? I heard they won without Tatis.
Yeah, exactly. Why is Tatis needed? You got Hoy Park, but at the end of the day, you can't. I mean, that's a good sign. I think great. Padres won without Tatis, but I also think that he there's no way that he will negatively impact the team when he's on the field. I think he brings so much tremendous value in all aspects of the game that nobody could say, okay, we don't need Tatis. Next year, I don't care. He's my starting shortstop. The year after, he's my starting shortstop.
Right.
And I know the Padres feel the same way. Whether it's outfield or shortstop, he has to be in the middle of the lineup, and to me, the Padres believe so too. They wouldn't have invested, the $300+ million in him at such a young age. So for me, it's like, I could see that argument, and I always hear that argument. To me, that doesn't change a thing, because it's just like Acuna. You could have used the same thing with Acuna with the Braves, in terms of always, being on top, but then Acuna is out and all of a sudden, they're World Series contenders, right? So it's like that had really nothing to do. Of course, Acuna is going to make the Braves stronger. Of course, Tatis is going to make the Padres stronger. Of course, Soto is going to make the Padres stronger, right? So for me, it's all the fluff. Like, you could speculate all you want, but at the end of the day, I'm not taking out Tatis in the middle of the lineup, no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just wanted to bring that point up because it's
good point.
Been
I see
argued.
it. Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Johnny.
Dang. All right, so if you're not as balling as Hyung to give away $300 Christmas gifts,
no, this is mine. This is Christmas
Wait
gift
till it's
to
my turn.
myself, John. That's what we're saying, right?
Treat yourself.
yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to see what would be available in the $50 range. Because that's kind of like a normal gift, and also,
Right.
there's a lot of $50 Secret Santa
Fair.
parties and all that stuff. So I'm going to go with, and obviously normally you wouldn't go with base, but at this price point you have to. It's going to be the 2018 Topps Update Juan Soto PSA 10, the paper. That card is going for $60 as of the time of this recording. And I think it, for maybe somebody who is maybe not into sports cards or just getting into it. Number one, it's a great gift. Somebody that's into baseball, it's Juan Soto. How could you go wrong? And then from an investment standpoint, I mean, yeah, it's base. Yeah, it's got thousands of pop as a PSA 10, but it's $60. What is the odds of that card? Even if the Padres win, like, it'll go to 100, it'll go to 120, it'll go to 180 when the market rebounds. Like, I think that this card, even though it is base, it's just too cheap, and I think there's some opportunity all around. So, yeah.
Okay.
I can't believe it's $60.
Too.
It's that's insane.
That's pretty cheap. Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah, it's funny because the one I chose is just under 600. So this is for someone I really care about, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife will get this one.
Yeah, Homer Simpson bowling ball.
I don't know. It's pretty much the equivalent if I gave this to her, but just for this, just for fun, I chose the 2018. It's funny you chose the Topps Gold Tatis Hyung. I chose the Topps Update Gold for Shohei Ohtani 2018.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
PSA 10. I was looking to pull the trigger for myself personally when I was like 750, 800. The last one sold for 586. So wow. It's going down. Off season, maybe it goes down to 500 if you could find one. I think that's a pretty good price because I think, Shohei's going to play one more year, it looks like, for the Angels. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, but he's back in Japan now at home. And he said something like, he didn't really have a great impression of this past season in LA. Oh, really? And now there's all this speculation that he wants to get traded, which I just think is, nonsense. But, he just signed like a $30 million extension. So I think he's going to play 1 year in LA, but who knows after that, right? He could hopefully play for a real contender, right? If the Angels don't do anything again this coming season. But I think there's this potential with Shohei. Like, people are still sleeping on him to a certain degree, like people just don't know what he's actually doing is pretty historic. So I like that bet. And PSA 9, I looked is going for about 200, 250. So that's a more affordable. I did look for a cheaper one if I want to really realistically play this Christmas gift game. Pete Alonso, Topps Chrome Base Auto, DGS 95, $99.
Oh, wow. For the auto.
Yeah, for the Topps Chrome Auto. It's a nice looking card. And, we talk about Alonso, doesn't get hobby love either. But, I mean, he hit 40 home runs last year, this past season, 37 the year before. If he continues up that trajectory, if he could get up to 50 somehow again, like he did in his rookie season, I could see that doubling, and he plays for the Mets. The Mets are competitive again, right? And they're going to be an exciting team.
He had a great season this year for sure.
Yeah, So I give you a few Christmas gift ideas, guys. Anyone listening to this podcast, if you have someone that's a fellow collector or someone who loves the hobby, you're welcome, guys. All right, let's move on to hobby headlines. So during this bear market, we always talk about this being a good opportunity if you still have disposable income to buy some of your grail cards at reduced prices. Or it could just be cards that you really like, which previously were, just too high in price because of the hobby boom. But now it's come down to earth. So I thought we could share which some of those cards might be for us personally and go over how much it's going for these days and how far it's dropped. Okay? I think, some of our podcast listeners might be surprised at some of the deals you can get right now. So I'll start first just to kind of set the table. For me, there's a few I actually really want that I've already probably shared on this podcast before, like the 2009 Mike Trout Bowman Chrome rookie auto, the base auto. The BGS 9.5 sold for $7,600 US recently. So, that's pretty tempting because if it's a grail card, like considering it once sold for $35,000, at that price you're like, oh, I'll never get it. But now at $7,600, if I could sell some of my current inventory and build up and just add a couple more thousand, definitely more attainable. But the guy I'm watching a lot now actually is Bryce Harper. His 2011 Bowman Chrome Refractor rookie auto, which is numbered to 500. The BGS 9.5, it's down to about 1,600. But last offseason, it sold for about 1,200, right? So I think, Bryce is a Hall of Famer when he's done.
For sure.
He's playing well right now for the Phillies in the playoffs. And, maybe he's just been overshadowed a bit in the last couple of seasons by some of the younger guys, like the Tatis, Soto, and Acuna. So, I think if it does go down again to 1,200 this winter, I might just scoop him up then. And, that card recently sold for $3,000 just last spring when the hype of baseball was coming around. So I think it's definitely got potential to go back up to those levels again, even sooner than later. One more card before I let you guys take over that I'm looking at is Kevin Durant Topps Chrome Refractor rookie card, numbered to $14.99. A BGS 9.5 last sold for about $4,700, and it's at its peak. It's sold for $27,000.
Wow!
Right, so we're KD believers, right? He's too good to fade, and I think for sure another Grail card that's all of a sudden much more attainable for me. So those cards are firmly on my watch list right now on eBay, and just a couple of maybe cards that you might find surprising it's dropped down that much. But when the hobby hopefully picks up again, I'm pretty confident those prices will go back up too.
I like it. I like your Bryce Harper pick because I think he is one of the most underrated players in the game, criminally underrated. Yes. But I think there's great buying opportunity there. He's 29 years old, 30 years old, and he's going to break some records. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and people treat him like absolute trash. Maybe it was that fight that really unsettled people's minds about Harper when he tried fighting. I wouldn't call it fighting. Yeah, no, it was I forgot who. I have to look it up, but it was bad. It was a bad look for Harper.
I think it was hilarious. The one where he fought his teammate?
No. This was when he charged a mound.
He threw the helmet. Yeah.
Through the air punches.
That became a huge meme.
Yeah, but I do believe that his Bowman Chrome is a good buy though. I never could pull the trigger because you're just nobody's looking this way. Maybe I have time. Maybe money spent elsewhere, right? So, but I do think that this offseason might be a good time to buy Bryce Harper. But I like your train of thought of Bowman Chromes. I think one thing that I've learned in the market is when everything's going good, every card is great. When things start tanking, everything but Bowman Chrome tanks, and that becomes the last to tank. And then it's the same thing on a bullish market. That's basically going to always hold its value and go up the most because it's the most desired. So it makes sense to kind of stay with the first Chromes And I like, obviously, we've mentioned it before in previous episodes, the Mike Trout, the 2009 Bowman Chrome, where we said it was way too cheap, especially colored refractors, or even refractors and X-fractors if you could play in that price range. But the Bowman Chrome BGS 95 auto that you mentioned is like, I just look at pre-COVID 2019 Bowman Chrome Mike Trout prices, and they're probably hovering around similar prices. So if I just extrapolate in my head the graph from 2019, 2020, 21, 22, I see this huge Eiffel Tower, CN Tower, right. And then it correcting right back where it used to be in 2019. So for me, it's right at that price point where I think it's kind of good to go kind of get into a Trout, because us collectors that wanted the Trouts pre-COVID, it did not exist. Like, you couldn't, because at that time spending $10,000 was, you're crazy, right? So being able to purchase a 2009 Bowman Chrome Trout auto, I think is a great move if you're able to play in that game. And also sticking with Bowman Chrome, PSA 10 Juan Soto sold actually for $2,900. So for me, that could be a potential good buy, because really Soto, I don't think had a terrible year. Obviously his batting average was down. His home run numbers might not have been where they wanted to be, but at the end of the day, he drew like 140 walks again. His OPS was, probably close to 900, which is bad for him. And, he's still being impactful, on a meaningful team now, right? So he has a batting title, he has a World Series ring, potentially 2 World Series rings. He's still 23 years old, right? So he's one of the brightest stars in the game. So for me, I don't mind, even though you could argue that his prices are still expensive, I think it could be a good purchase in the off season, because I don't see his production going down anytime soon. So I'm gonna gamble on that, but Bowman Chromes in general, I think is the move. Yeah,
I love Soto too, for sure.
Good call. I'll go next. Man, during this market, this is Grail hunting season. I think if you wanted anybody, I don't think, because there aren't many players that have really spiked, aside from maybe Aaron Judge, during this time. And a couple of football guys, but like if you wanted a Luka Grail, or you always wanted a Jokic Grail, or hockey or whatever, this is the time. So for me, I'm seriously looking at some like PC Grail hunting cards, and one is one that we talked about, and you featured on your 5 card guys, is the Kobe 2008 Kobe LeBron refractor. Like that is a card that I never thought I could possibly own. And the fact that it's now creeping under 4, and cross our fingers, it goes towards like the 3K mark. Yep. Man, I am going to be all over that one. And I'm sure Clark, you will be too. And then cards that I never thought that I would even consider this early in my card journey is a couple of like hockey grails for me. It's got to be a Connor McDavid Future Watch auto. But the priority for me, just on a personal level, I think I would go for the Crosby Future Watch auto. That was a card that I personally tried. I came back into the hobby after being out of it in 97. And when was Crosby's year? 2004. I came back on purpose just to try to get that card and rip it out of a pack, which was impossible, but I tried nonetheless. So that has a special place. I mean, Crosby's going to go down for me. He's top 5 all time. So even like a Crosby Future Watch auto, I never thought I could possibly own it this early. So I'm definitely going to keep my eye out.
Yeah. Great choices. Great Grail cards. I thought, if you're in the hobby, especially the last 3-4 years, and you've gone through the ups and downs already, the volatility of the market, like all those cards that you thought were out of reach, it might be fun just to look at where the prices are now, because you might be really surprised at how far it's fallen. The hard part will be pulling the trigger on it, though. You know what I mean? You're like, it's like a second chance for you to get it, but then it's still hard to pull that trigger.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm itching to do to get at least one of the grails I just mentioned. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully soon. All right, let's go on now to our next segment. It's the return of overrated, underrated. And for this overrated, underrated segment, it'll be focused on certain aspects of the local live card shows. And with one that's coming up for us here in Toronto in less than 2 weeks by the time this airs, it's timely for us, but I'm sure our American friends might find this segment interesting as well, since they pretty much have more regular card shows than we do here. So the first point of discussion, overrated or underrated on eBay comps.
Ooh. Man, I gotta watch what I say because I know a lot of people they live and die eBay comps, right?
Yeah.
I'm not personally. I think eBay comps are overrated. But here's why. Mm-hmm. Personally, I deal with I like more rare cards, so
yeah.
I know that there's not going to be many comps on it.
Right.
So I'm not going to base my rare card based on the last sold because, I mean, it depends on the population, right? So I think a lot of people say, oh, because the eBay comp says so, you have to sell it at that. Hey, it's each individual's card, so it's their choice, and they're not bound to sell anything because I wouldn't sell it for comp if I thought it was too cheap. Maybe a trade is better. So you could, and necessarily eBay comps might not be the best gauge of trading value either, right? So to me, it all depends on, pop count. And if you're going with all base, absolutely. You have to live and die by eBay comps. But when you're trading or buying and selling, rare cards that potentially can go up in a couple months or 3 months or 5 months, and there's a lot of swing and there's not really many comps, I don't think you could go back to eBay comps and say, okay, last March it sold for X amount of dollars, so therefore you're bound to sell it at that comp, Right. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents, but I know a lot of people, live and die by it with their right hand up in the air, so I'm not going to hate on that, but overrated.
Do winning auctions that that went unpaid still show up as sold?
They do.
On eBay?
Yeah. They do.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a point I'm going to make too. I'm going to say eBay comps are definitely overrated. I get the argument for eBay comps because you've got the most eyes on it. It would probably most accurately represent the market when all is fair. But there's a lot of, eBay's system can be wonky at times. There's a lot of funny business going on a lot of the times. So the fact that people use it as the Bible for comps, like it's that or nothing. Like that's it. Like eBay comps is the thing to go after. I think it's just too heavily relied upon. I think it's easier to look up something liquid like Lucas Silver that trades every day. Fine. You can, the price fluctuates within a certain percentage. But like Hyung was saying on rare stuff, I think people are just too hard on the last eBay comp. I mean, we're guilty of that. If we want to snipe at the lowest price, like the 2008 Kobe refractor, we're going to want it for $3,800. That's the last sale. But obviously the guy selling it's going to be like, no, that's not a real sale. That's like...
So it depends if you're a buyer or seller.
Exactly.
eBay comps are overrated or underrated.
Yeah.
That's true.
So true. But yeah, I will say generally, I'm gonna say overrated.
Yeah. I think it's going to be overrated sweep. And it's funny for like slightly different reasons. I think as more... there are different ways to get cards now, right? Not just eBay. And, there's golden auctions, there's PWCC, and, Card Ladder aggregates a lot more than just eBay now, right? And if you do your research, you'll know, like there are other avenues to buy cards, and you got to consider that moving forward. So I think, when I say back in the day, even like 5-6 years ago, it was just eBay mostly. Right. But I think that's with a lot of different ways to get cards now, and you can find, we've talked about this in a previous podcast, where you could find deals on other platforms if you do your research and you go there, and even Facebook groups too, right? Like there's so many different ways of getting cards. So yeah, I think eBay comps isn't it's still useful, but it's not the be all and end all, in my opinion. All right, second thing on the list here: venue size or number of vendors at a card show. Do you think that's overrated or underrated?
Man, like normally we always wanted like a bigger card show, and there's more people, more transaction, but we all witnessed it where we kind of prefer the smaller shows where you could actually make deals. And I think it's overrated because I think these big deals, or like these big shows, like even the National, are kind of losing its luster because it's so expensive to set up shop now. You're talking, if it's multiple days, hotel, food, and if you're not doing this on a full-time basis where you're constantly pushing like profitable product, usually stuff that's not ripped, right? Or it's like you got it so cheap. But I just think that the bigger the venue size, the more disappointed card shows become, because I feel like there's a lot of expectation to create or make money, and I think there's a lot of disappointment over the last couple years, especially outside of kind of like that COVID bubble, right, where we are all looking forward to these big shows, and then these big shows come and we're just kind of like, okay, it's not what I expected, because obviously prices are kind of like all over the map. People aren't really willing to push some products. They're just trying to get rid of junk slabs. And back in the day, you could literally bring, just a wad of cash to like the big shows, and you're going to see cards that you've never seen before. Right? Yeah. It's not like that anymore. It's so flooded and saturated that I feel like it's not as good as it used to be. Let's say, right? So I'm going to say overrated on venue size and number of vendors. That just means more junk slabs if there's more vendors.
Right. I see that point.
I think I understand from Hyung's point of view. It's more on the business stance. I'm going to say underrated. I am a fan of the larger sizes. I don't, I think me, like I'm the hunter when I get to the shows.
Right.
I put in the work, and I think the smaller shows tend obviously not to attract, if it's a smaller show and some of the bigger vendors, sometimes they don't want to waste their time, right? They know that it's going to have low traffic volume. I'm not going to set up there. It's a random weekend on there's many of them going on. I'd rather just, go once, go hard at the expo, which is the big one, tons of traffic. So I think the size, the experience, just the awe of seeing so many different products, and even if it's like jerseys and whatever, seeing something beyond just sports cards, just seeing all in one place. I think the entirety of the experience, and seeing all of those rare cards that come out that you don't see at smaller shows, I think no matter how much you may strike out and deals may not work out, there are so many to work with. You will eventually, if you put in the time, you will run into some vendors, you'll run into some cards that you can make deals on. So I think I'm going to say underrated. I like it.
Yeah, good points. Yeah, I totally get where both of you are coming from. And I think when I thought about this, it's contingent on where the show is, because like in Canada, we always say it's predominantly hockey cards, right? Hockey cards is the main thing here. So I'm going to say, as a Canadian collector and buyer and seller that lives in Canada, number of vendors and venue size is underrated, because what I'm looking for, primarily baseball and basketball, I have a better shot at finding those vendors at bigger card shows. And at smaller ones, it's even if it's like 90% hockey, like it's maybe there's one or two booths at smaller shows where it's predominantly baseball basketball. And last Sports Card Expo, that was pretty much Hyung's booth. You know what I mean? Like non hockey. And I'm like, so, and it's hard to find other vendors here in Canada, at least. I would expect that it's a different story in the States where there's more baseball and basketball cards to go around. And if that was the case, I probably prefer a slightly smaller venue because it is tiring to walk a huge space, and then sometimes a lot of it is waste of time because you can't find the right ones. And once you do find them, that's when you got to spend more time trying to negotiate and go back and forth in this larger venue. So ideally, I like the smaller venues with vendors that cater to me. Like that's the perfect world. Why can't we just have that?
10 vendors, all of them have Lucas Silvers.
Yeah, they're itching to buy Aaron Judge rookie autos. Okay, that's what I want. So if our American friends, our American vendors can just come up to the Sports Card Expo in November, that'd be amazing. But
greatly appreciated.
But yeah, I guess in our reality right now, I think it's just underrated because I like the chance and opportunity to find actual vendors that I'm interested in doing business with. All right, third item on the list: corporate brand presence at card shows. So that could be like any grading companies like PSA, SGC, Beckett, of course. Then there's Whatnot. We saw at the last Sports Card Expo.
They're still messaging me. I ignored them, so hopefully they're not listening to this. But I ignored them.
I had a chat with them the other day. Yeah, I see what they're doing, but they're just trying to run their business.
For sure.
But
absolutely.
there's eBay, PWCC, so that kind of thing. Right. What do you think about corporate brand presence at shows? You
know what? I'm gonna say underrated because I think these shows, the purpose of these shows is not just card shows. I think it's a way to get the market better. And these companies are the fast forward thinkers that are trying to make the market better and put their product to market. And I know like the true hobbyists, they don't like, the corporate kind of like presence in these shows. But I think a mixture of sports cards. So if I'm let's just say a sports card attendee in a card show, I would love to go see stuff that has nothing to do with cards. Maybe it's a new company coming up with showing me fractional shares, for instance, or it's a new company that is launching their new platform where potentially I'm confused of it a bit and I could talk to someone face to face. It's in the same space as the whole trading carding aspect. So for me, I think I would like to see a little more of it where it's like a trade show with a bunch of trades being done with cards as well, right? So you have different elements of kind of like the card show, not just wheeling and dealing and trying to get rid of slabs. You have businesses there. You could purchase things that we normally can't purchase. I don't know what that would be with like PSA and whatnot and eBay, but just in general, having these new startup companies, giving away stuff, I think it brings the whole experience of kind of like the sports card show. So I think it's great for the hobby, and I'm all for companies growing in the space. So this is a perfect avenue to get your target market all in one spot.
Yeah, I hear that.
Agree 100%. Underrated. The three of us all studied marketing, so we have an appreciation for marketing. We can also be suckers for marketing. And, the corporate brand presence is a big piece of the energy that is live at these shows, right? If you go to a show with no corporate presence, it's in like a dingy gymnasium and it's just a bunch of dudes with tables. That experience is so different than walking into like a giant airport hangar that is draped with like Upper Deck logos and PWCC and eBay. There's a level, even though it's simple marketing, and there's a giant stage with PSA and Jeff Wilson is there and all that, like that adds to the level of energy that's at that show or whatever you're experiencing. So 100%, I think, people will look at it and be like, what, I don't even go to the booth. I don't visit the eBay booth. Like, why are they there? Like, it's a waste of time. No, there's a reason it's underrated, and I think even their presence, whether you even visit the booth or not, the presence makes a big deal at these shows for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be easy, underrated sweep. I think it just, in a way, legitimizes the hobby as well, right. Just with all these bigger players coming into the picture. And it's just good that, to have certain innovators there with their goal of just trying to make the hobby better or more accessible. And, just growing the overall business of the hobby is just general win for anyone that's in it, and I know some purists are against it, but like at the same time, like every industry evolves and it has to sustain itself. And I think this is a natural evolution of the hobby, as and then it could go back into the whole collector versus investor debate. But as we talked with some of our previous guests and even on this podcast, like it's hard to just find pure collectors. You're right. Probably an investor as well, even if you didn't want to admit it. I think that's what Brian was saying, Cajun Cardboard, right?
Yeah.
So like I agree with that statement as well. So yeah, just corporate brand presence, I just think it's a good sign of the hobby evolving and just becoming stronger, which gives me more confidence, especially during these times, during this bear market, that it's just not going to fade away or go to zero at any point. Because right. There's a lot of money invested in the hobby now, and they want to see their money grow too, right? So
for sure.
All right, last thing on my list is on-site grading services.
So do you get your grades back on site, or is it just submitting?
I guess it could be both.
Because I guess PSA would offer like in and out service of like $500 right. And the upcharge you like $10,000 right for a really expensive card. Yeah. So something like that.
Do they slab on the spot though, or is it how sometimes they just give the grade, like the pre-grading where they put into like a card saver?
You know what? I've graded once with Beckett on site, and then they took my cards and just shipped it off.
They'll mail it later.
Yeah. It was kind of like you skip the whole mailing process. Yeah. You could submit right. there, and then it goes in a pile and gets submitted regularly. That's to my knowledge. I don't know if I've never done a in and out service that PSA offers before. So I don't know if you're talking about that, but I like the idea of on-site grading. I like the option that you don't have to mail out your cards. You could go out directly. Mm-hmm. And like when I started collecting, that was my biggest fear for some reason. And it's usually everybody's biggest fear. It's like they never graded before. They're like, oh man, I can't. I'd rather give this in person. It's a very valuable card. It's like $300 card, right? And you're just so scared to like ship it out. So it gives that peace of mind, the face to face, to drop it off. It's like, okay, I've submitted it. I got my receipt. Insurance is in play, so it's like all good, right? So that in that sense, I will say it's underrated. But if you start bringing in like the whole PSA 30-minute service or whatever they offer now, maybe, I think it's a slightly overrated in that sense where, they're going to upcharge you if your card's more valuable. And like, I guess there's advantages to that too, because that service is needed for some people to get it on site. So I can't say it's overrated. So in general, I'd just say underrated, but I do see kind of like the bad stuff about it too. Right. So
okay.
Yeah. I'm going with underrated too. It lowers your chance of getting a PSA 7 upper deck Shaq with a dinged corner.
Why don't you tell us the backstory about that so people understand?
No, I already shared it. You're gonna have to go back to one of the episodes to listen to that. No, but aside from that joke, I think it's underrated because being the ability to skip that process, like you said, like even though we have now experienced grading and submitting and all of that stuff, it's an upcharge and it's a lot more expensive. But to just walk in there and skip that phase, number one, you're saving time. And, if you have a big card, like we're not talking like a $200, $300, like let's say you have a monster card, like a $50,000 Tom Brady. Like you have that assurance. Now it's in the hands and they're insuring it. Nothing is on me anymore. Like it's not about me sending it out and it gets possibly lost by FedEx or whatever. Like I literally handed it off to the company and it's all on them now. So I think that assurance, even if you are paying a bit more, to me, it's worth it 100%. I think it is underrated. I think it's a service that a lot of people should utilize, and easier said than done when you walk in there and it's like a 5-hour lineup or something, but yeah, the general concept underrated.
Yeah. I'm going to say underrated too for the exact same reasons that you just mentioned, John. Like it's and Hyung, like it's really for peace of mind, like right. Hyung, you were talking about like those guys that are nervous about shipping. That's probably me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, is it going to get lost? How much insurance should I put on it? I don't want to get dinged with duties and all these other questions that come in play, right? So like, I just want to go up to the PSA booth and just drop off my card. Actually, that's why one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to the November show here in Toronto, my Wander Franco. Like, actually, it's becoming less, like it's still underrated in my opinion, but with group submitters, there's more options here now in Canada. So like I feel better with those guys, just letting them deal with it. So it's not as, I guess as beneficial as it used to be when they were here at these card shows. But I still like, the different services they offer on site. Like, I just found out one of the group submitters I usually go with for my Wander Franco, they don't ship anything that you want authentic. They'll do a grade. They'll submit any cards that you want to grade for. But if you just want it to be a PSA authentic graded card with no number grade, they won't ship that out for whatever reason. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but see, if I went to the PSA booth in November, I can easily do that. Say I just want this to be graded authentic, and that's it, right? So yeah, I like it, and again, I feel like as Canadians, we definitely benefit from those guys coming to the shows, so we can just drop it off with them and they just carry it with them across the border. We don't have to deal with that stuff too. Right. All right, another great round of overrated, underrated. We'll think of another new category the next time we do this in a future episode. All right, let's wrap up this episode with our regular weekly segment we call Pick One. And as usual, this is a segment where each of us come up with 2 cards or 2 players, and we debate which one we would rather invest in. All right, so let's ask Hyung to lead off as usual.
All right, we're going to go, as mentioned earlier, we're talking about Juan Soto a bit, and maybe now is the time where, you start zoning in on a Soto card that you might want to, pick out. And 2 cards that I've picked out are both Soto cards, and I think they're both beautiful cards, even though John might disagree. One is the 26 Bowman Chrome Soto auto, which is his first auto, PSA 10, last sold, as mentioned, $2,900, which I thought was pretty cheap. And John, this is the card I'm referring to you because you absolutely hate this. I know. Hate this image. Versus 2018 Topps Chrome. It was actually a refractor auto, but I believe they don't call it refractor. It's the only auto. He doesn't have a base auto in that set, but it's Topps Chrome Update Soto Auto PSA 10, last sold for $3,500. I remember I think I sold that card at like $6,500 earlier this season. So
this is the HMT 55.
It is the HMT 55 with the sticker auto, yeah. And believe it or not, this is what a lot of people don't realize. Even though it's not numbered, right? There's an X Fractor that's numbered, right? I believe to 125, but the pop on the refractor is actually slightly lower, I believe. I didn't check, but last time there was a higher pop count on the X Fractor. Really? Even though that the refractor wasn't numbered. So it was an interesting stat because the X Fractor was outselling the refractors like crazy, but the pop counts were similar. And I thought that was very interesting, if not a good buy on the refractor end long term, right? And part of the reason why I brought these 2 cards up is because I believe Juan Soto is a special case scenario with the modern cards because he was so overshadowed by Vladdy and Acuna coming up that Soto wasn't the big superstar that got printed all these rookie cards, all these first cards. He doesn't even have a Bowman first base, for instance, right? He just has an auto and on in 2016. And then 2018, he came out late and he was only an update. So update paper, right? So you have your flagship parallels there, and then you have your chrome numbered cards, your chrome base, chrome numbered cards, and your chrome autos. That's pretty much the only cards other than his Bowman's best, right? So I think Soto's a special case in terms of a huge supply demand monster. So I know he's a young stud, and I'm against kind of like now in this bear market to bet for the young stud, but I think Soto, it might be a good buy if his prices continue to go, because I think you're kind of safe with kind of like the lack of selections of Soto rookies. And as a long-term hold, I think you're just trying to snipe at the dip. So going to that, which one would you choose? 2016 Bowman Chrome PSA 10 sold for $2,900, or a 2018 Topps Chrome Update Refractor Auto PSA 10 sold for $3,500.
Another very similar tough 1v1 for me. It's the T-ball giant helmet Bowman first image that I don't like versus a sticker auto. This one for me, I'm gonna pick the 2018 refractor sticker auto.
Wow.
It's the image, man. I love the flagship image of Soto. There aren't many variations or off of the base, and especially with an autograph, this is probably one of the times that I'm completely accepting of the sticker auto. And I would say the rest of the market is also very accepting of the sticker auto for this particular card, because it's just so rare to get a flagship Soto card that is not base, or that is not a pink refractor or rainbow foil, like a very special SSP flagship image. So it's an easy one for me. That's the one that I would enjoy the most staring at, because I don't want to stare at the T-ball helmet. Easy one. Topps Chrome.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an easy one for me too. It's the T-ball helmet. the 2016. Come on, man. It's a Bowman Chrome. Like this is oh man, I can't. Yeah.
You know what? If it was a refractor, yeah, it's because it's the base. If it was a refractor, I think it would change my mind. But refractor's in a different stratosphere in terms of price.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, I'm obviously more biased to Bowman Chrome first autos too. So that definitely plays into my decision. But yeah, it's an on-card auto. Nothing more to discuss there. It's a sticker auto. Come on, John. It's a sticker auto. But I get it. The image is a million times better on the Topps Chrome than it is from Bowman Chrome. Yeah.
Okay, I'll switch it up. What if it was the 2016 refractor PSA 10? I don't know what it goes for, 8,000 or 10,000, whatever the price is, versus the 2018 Topps Chrome Update gold refractor out of 50.
Oh, the gold.
The gold, yeah,
the gold.
All right.
There are different hierarchies, sticker, gold, Bowman Chrome, top Chrome. Yeah, there's
fair enough.
But I will say this, John, to your point, I actually remember I bought the Soto refractor over the 2016 Bowman Chrome.
Right.
I actually did, because I had the chance to purchase both. I just thought the Bowman Chrome was overpriced at the time. That was kind of like why my move happened, and then I ended up selling that card for a slight profit. I kind of held too long, and then it went up. The 2018 Chrome Auto went up to like nine grand, and I didn't sell. And now it's at 3,500. But for me, I'm the same thing. I'm going with the Bowman Chrome, because I think, like I said, in a bear market, when it's all said and done, like Bowman Chrome is kind of like the grail of any card. It's the last to get hit, the first to go up. So it's like, that's the one I want. I want the on-card auto. Even though maybe personally you're right. Like I prefer the aesthetic and appeal of that 2018 Topps Chrome Update, the HMT 55, just because, it's not his minor league image, but there's something about that minor league image too, is is that, you know, nostalgia of kind of like, man, this guy was 16 when this picture was taken, or 17, and you know, he becomes that superstar, and then it's like you have the pre-rookie card, right? It's like the XRC. So for me, it's definitely the Bowman Chrome Auto.
Nice. That was a good one. All right, John.
All right, fellas. In honor of Grail hunting, these are actually 2 cards I didn't mention on purpose, but I have been closely monitoring, and if a scenario happened where I could maybe trade into one or get into one, like trading up into one, I would love it. It's going to be 89 Topps Traded Tiffany Griffey PSA 10, which goes for around $4,500 right now, versus the 86 Topps Traded Tiffany Bonds PSA 10, which goes for around $6,500. 2 Grail cards of 2 of the all-time greats. Which one are you choosing?
I'll go first. I was just looking at the pop count and just the trend via card ladder. So the pop count is actually higher for the Barry Bonds PSA 10.
Yeah, just by a
than
little,
it
right?
is for,
it's like a 444 or something versus 333.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, oh man, I like both cards, but I think because of the investment risk that's still there with Barry Bonds, and the fact that I just like Griffey as a player more. Like I grew up just idolizing Ken Griffey.
Yeah.
That was you know, my era of childhood baseball. I'm going with Ken Griffey. Yeah.
Nice.
If the price was flipped, that
Good
might
question.
be different. That might be different. You know, I might go Barry Bonds if it was 4.5K and the Griffey was at 6.5K for the value.
So what was the pop on the Griffey?
333 and
Versus?
the Bonds is 444.
Okay, yeah. So for it's
Give
333
or
and
take roughly
444.
about the same.
Okay, so here's my thing. So if I were to buy a Barry Bonds card, it would be the Topps Tiffany 1986 for sure. And like by chance, like obviously PSA 10 would be kind of like the chase, but like if I were to buy a Griffey, I wouldn't buy a Topps Traded Tiffany.
Good point. Because there's
You know what
a
I
Bowman
mean?
Tiffany too,
Yeah, and for me, it's the upper deck
or the
that
89
is
upper deck.
it is the card, right? And
Right.
obviously, you know, it's a little cheaper because there's a lot more available, and that was one of the mostly printed cards I'd say, I guess.
Probably of all time.
Of all time. So there is that, but for me, like, yeah, I just feel like it's Griffey's, like kind of like more of a rare Griffey card that a collector would appreciate more than kind of like it's the Grail, whereas the Bonds Tiffany is like his Grail, in my opinion, right? Like you have other Bonds cards that are secondary, like his Leaf card, you know, his 87 Leaf and stuff like that. But those are second tier to kind of like his Topps Tiffany. So I'm gonna go Barry Bonds because I still think that once this is all said and done, Barry Bonds is the greatest of all time, and there's a reason why his name still stays on the top, to be honest, you know. And for me, it's like no one's gonna touch what he's done. And for me, his rookie cards come in an era where it was kind of like pre I guess the junk wax era. It's just on the tail end of it. So for me, like, yeah, the PSA 10 Topps Traded Tiffany is such a massive card that it's still on my Grail list. I don't think a Topps Tiffany Traded Griffey would be on my Grail list, you know? So for me, it's the Bonds, yeah.
Yeah, that is a great point. That's not something I really thought of, but it's well said. I'm with you guys. I mean, Griffey was one of, if not one of my all-time favorite baseball player. We all idolized him. That's why sports cards in general blew up when we were young. Mm-hmm. Barry Bonds, I did not idolize him. I did not like him. Of course, I enjoyed the runs that he went on, and it was pretty awesome to watch. but I generally was not a big fan. But now that we're fast forward 10, 15 years, I don't know. My mind is softened on bonds a lot. And for some reason, and I think it comes back to Hyung's point about the Tiffany bonds being like the grail card. There's just something about that card. It's just alluring, and it makes me just want it. You know, it's like that shiny jewel. So it's the bonds for me, and mainly even from an investment standpoint, the fact that Trout is really starting to lose steam on possibly being called the greatest of all time, and now Bonds, you know, most likely hanging on to that mantle for the unforeseen future. Arguably, obviously not everyone's going to agree, but I think that's really going to start in the next little while, especially as Trout starts to wind down his career. I think Bonds' name is going to continue to be in a lot of these shows about talking about the greatest of all time baseball players and all of that stuff. I think Bonds is going to be up there. So I think this card's going to continue to stay relevant. So investment wise too, I think it's Bonds all the way.
I'm just going to throw out a stat I just checked out, and it's so ridiculous. Bonds is playing Nintendo in the in the 2000s. Like, I'm telling you, he had 162.8 WAR.
Wow.
In 22 seasons. 162. Like, that's so ridiculous. That's some massive production. And
right.
298 career batting average with 762 home runs, you know, which is first. He leads all time in walks, which is 2,558. You know, so like to me, it's just
Can you imagine how many more home runs he had if he intentionally walked?
And just to put into perspective, so 162 WAR. Okay, Griffey's WAR was 83, and that's a Hall of Famer. 630 home runs, 284 career. Yeah, like Griffey was my guy too. You know, same 22 years, but in that span, Bonds basically managed to double Griffey's production.
Right.
That is insane. I just thought I'd throw that out there. And to me, it's like, that's important because you look at the Manals that sell for these millions, right? And then it's like, okay, I get it. It's more of an art piece than anything. But then we're talking about Mantle was a great baseball player and possibly one of the greatest of all times in that list, right? Obviously, he's down that list because he didn't play enough seasons, in my opinion. That's what hurt him. But Bonds played enough season. He leads in home runs all time. You know, he leads in walks all time. He's probably up there in WAR, 1 or 2, has to be all time. So for me, it's like, why is this card so cheap? You know, it's because at the end of the day, it's the whole steroid thing, right? And for me, that all is going to pass. The next generation, they're not even going to care about that, right? So it's like, for me, it's just the timing of everything is just off for Bonds. Like the last, I'd say 10, 15 years, it hasn't been Bonds' kind of era. But I think one day there's going to be a time where it's going to be Bonds' era. He's going to deserve every single thing he's done for the game. McGuire, Sosa, all of them, they grew the game in ways that, you know, people don't understand the importance of what they did for the game in the era that they were in, right? And I played baseball during that era, and let me tell you, there was a lot of that stuff going on, and nobody batted an eye, nor did they want to. So it's just saying it is a business, and it's unfortunate, but you can't penalize a guy for doing what he did when other people were doing it. Right. So that's my 2 cents. I didn't want to go there because obviously people are gonna just start throwing stuff at me. But yeah, Topps Tiffany bonds, 168 WAR.
Yep.
All right, it's a bond sweep. I changed my vote. That was deserving of me changing my mind. All right. No, I like that. Okay, we'll end off this segment with my pick one. Okay, I didn't think of a specific card, but I chose 2 players. All right. On one side, Russell Westbrook. On the other side, Kyrie Irving.
Interesting.
And I want to know, who's the bigger, better upside play? Because obviously those two have their issues on their respective teams. So yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I'll go first on this before John goes. To me, it's Kyrie Irving. I think Russell Westbrook did so much damage to him that he's on the trajectory down. I don't necessarily see that with Kyrie yet because he's still young. You know, I believe Russ is a little older than Kyrie, but I feel like Kyrie's production hasn't gone down, whereas Russ's has gone down. So he's on kind of like that slope of his end of his career. I don't think Kyrie's there yet. I think Kyrie has a few more seasons in him where he could, you know, drop his 26, 27 points per game, you know, is an impactful player, but I don't see Russell Westbrook doing that. So even from an investment standpoint, I think you're going to see his cards start sliding. Even though Russell Westbrook had a tremendous career, I don't think he's going to improve on his previous numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. Agreed. Kyrie Irving for me too. I am probably completely disrespecting Westbrook's career, but I mean, these guys were both polarizing personalities, and a lot of people can say, you know, not likable. There's a lot not to like about both of these guys. But where it stands right now, Westbrook is almost like, some of his game is almost embarrassing. Like the reason why they call him Westbrook is, you know, he's shooting like shots off the backboard, the top of the backboard, the side of the backboard.
This is one time, all right? This is one time, okay?
There are multiple video evidence of him bricking off the backboard. And Kyrie is still elite. No matter how much you may not like the guy, he is a treat to watch. And if it wasn't for all of the shenanigans and, you know, the things that he's done to not become a likable character, I think a lot of people will be talking about, you know, the fact that he's kind of a diva and jumping from team to team. I think if he was solid, maybe with a single team or two, one with Cleveland, maybe won another championship, like let's say Boston, like things had progressed differently in his career, we'd be talking Kyrie Irving on the trajectory of being top 30, top 20 all time. Like that is how incredibly skilled this guy is as a point guard. And I think there's still a lot to him. And I think if he continues to be an incredible basketball player for the next foreseeable future, for the next number of years, and he just focuses on basketball, I think people are going to slowly kind of forget he was an unlikable character, and he's got a real good chance of his cards rebounding. Whereas Westbrook, I don't know, man, unless you're really like a hardcore Westbrook fan, I see no reason to go after him in any sense of investment, any sense for investment wise.
Okay. That's pretty harsh, but okay. Because I'm going Westbrook, guys. What? I mean, talent wise, I love Kyrie better. Okay, and yeah, Westbrook's last two seasons were just wretched, but he still wants to play. I have a feeling that he still wants to play. He plays hard, and maybe, you know, he's got to tweak his game here and there. But I still believe in his talent, just generally speaking. Yeah, he's 33 years old. I just checked his age. 33 versus Kyrie, who's 30, so 3 years younger. Here's why I'm choosing Westbrook. It's not really because I love Westbrook. It's because Kyrie could retire tomorrow. Like, he could do anything tomorrow. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
erratic. You never know.
Yeah, very erratic, unpredictable. So I'm gonna be just more conservative on this play. You know, like, wow. I think Westbrook will play at least 2 more seasons, at least. Whereas I can't say with full confidence that Kyrie will. And I hope he does, because I have his friggin' Prism rookie card that's plummeted in value over the last couple of years. So I'm rooting for Kyrie. But yeah, at the same time, I just don't know what he's gonna do. He's just so unpredictable. So that's why I'm going.
I see Westbrook kind of going that Carmelo route. You know, it's like kind of like maybe
he's not bad.
Yeah, well, no, I mean Carmelo was amazing, right? And then you when you're at that age, 33, 34, you're kind of like, am I still impactful? And you realize, you know what, my performance is slowly dwindling. I'm not as fast as my first step is a little slower. Like I see that happening to Russell Westbrook, right? So I think the next few years, you know, especially this year, he starts averaging, 15 to 18 a game. And then that's when it's starting to just, I think he's done. Yeah. He has two more years after that, and then that's his career, right? But you never know, right? You just never know.
I don't see it, man. Westbrook has become way too much of a meme. It's going to be hard to recover from that.
You know what? That's okay. When you're becoming too much of a meme, you still get all the attention. So that kind of could play into his values. I just decided to look on the optimistic side. All right. Interesting discussion. We'd love to hear from you guys what you think, whether it's Westbrook versus Irving or any of our other pick ones on this episode or even past episodes, or if you have one of your own that you'd like for us to debate. Just reach out to us at Cards to the Moon. We're on Instagram, all one word. All right, that wraps up this show. Thank you once again for all our listeners and subscribers who have been with us for over a year now, and we really appreciate all your support. We'll see you again next week. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.